"Your fame killed my husband," she screamed at Michael Jordan outside the courthouse. The mother of his father's killer, pointing her finger at the most famous athlete in the world. What she said next would make Michael question everything he'd achieved, everything he'd built, everything he thought his success was worth. Standing on the courthouse steps in Lumberton, North Carolina, Michael Jordan, the man who had never shown weakness, who had conquered every challenge on the basketball court, felt completely powerless for the first time in his life. This isn't just a story about a family tragedy. It's about the moment when the greatest athlete in the world realized that fame comes with a price that no amount of success can ever justify. June 15, 1993. Michael Jordan was in his Chicago mansion, still basking in the glow of his third consecutive NBA championship. The Bulls had just completed one of the most dominant runs in basketball history, and Michael was on top of the world. The phone rang at 11:47 p.m. "Michael, it's your mother." Dolores Jordan's voice was shaking, something Michael had never heard before. His mother was the strongest person he knew, the rock that had held their family together through everything. "Mom, what's wrong?" "It's your father, Michael. He's missing." The words didn't compute at first. Missing? How could his father be missing? "What do you mean missing?" "He left this morning to drive to Cornelius for Willie Brantley's funeral. That was 12 hours ago. He should have been home by 7. I've been calling everyone, the police, the hospitals. Nobody's seen him." Michael felt his world tilt. James Jordan was the most reliable man he knew. He didn't just disappear. "I'm coming home, Mom, right now." "Michael, wait, there's something else." "What?" I think this might be connected to your fame. There have been threats, Michael. Letters, phone calls, things we never told you about because we didn't want you to worry." As Michael flew to North Carolina that night, his mind raced with memories of his father. James Jordan had been more than a parent. He had been Michael's anchor, his moral compass, his biggest supporter and toughest critic. James had worked multiple jobs to support Michael's basketball dreams. He had driven hundreds of miles to watch games, had been there for every triumph and every setback. When Michael made it to the NBA, James had been prouder than anyone. But Michael also remembered the conversations they'd had about fame and its dangers. "Son," James had said after Michael's first championship, "success makes you a target. Not just you, but everyone you love. Dad, nothing's going to happen. We're careful." Being careful isn't always enough, Michael. Sometimes the price of being famous is higher than anyone should have to pay. Michael had dismissed his father's concerns. He was young, invincible, at the peak of his powers. He thought he could protect everyone he loved simply by being Michael Jordan. He was wrong. For 11 days, the Jordan family lived in hell. Every phone call could be the one that brought good news or devastating confirmation of their worst fears. Michael put his life on hold, coordinating with police, hiring private investigators, appearing on television to plead for his father's safe return. The media circus was overwhelming. Every day brought new theories, new rumors, new speculation about what had happened to James Jordan. Some said it was a kidnapping for ransom. Others suggested it was connected to Michael's gambling. The truth, when it finally came, was somehow both simpler and more devastating than anyone had imagined. On July 5, 1993, the call came. James Jordan's body had been found in a creek in South Carolina. He had been murdered by 2 young men who had apparently targeted him at random while he was taking a nap in his car during the drive to the funeral. Random. That was the word that would haunt Michael forever. Not a kidnapping plot, not a scheme targeting his family, just 2 criminals who saw an expensive car and an older man alone and decided to rob him. But as the details emerged, Michael learned that random didn't mean meaningless, and it certainly didn't mean blameless. The investigation revealed that James Jordan had been driving Michael's red Lexus SC400, a gift Michael had given him for his birthday. The car was flashy, expensive, exactly the kind of vehicle that would attract attention. More devastating was the discovery that James had been wearing several pieces of jewelry that clearly marked him as connected to wealth and fame. A championship ring Michael had given him, a Rolex with a custom engraving, a gold chain with a pendant that said, "Michael's dad." In trying to show his love and appreciation for his father, Michael had unknowingly made him a target. The two killers, Daniel Green and Larry Demery, were young men from poor backgrounds who saw an opportunity and took it. During their confession, they admitted that they had initially planned just to rob James, but when they saw the jewelry in the car, they realized he must be connected to someone important. "We knew this wasn't just any old man," Green had told police. "This was somebody with money, somebody connected." They had killed James Jordan not because of who he was, but because of who his son was. The trial was a media spectacle. Michael attended every day, sitting in the front row, watching as the men who had killed his father were paraded before the court. He heard every detail of his father's final moments, every callous decision that had led to an innocent man's death. But the moment that destroyed him came on the courthouse steps after the verdicts were read. Daniel Green and Larry Demery had been sentenced to life in prison, and Michael thought he could finally begin to heal. That's when she appeared. Margaret Thompson was Daniel Green's mother, a woman whose own life had been shattered by her son's actions. She was small, frail, probably in her 50s, with eyes full of pain and rage. "Mr. Jordan," she called out as Michael was leaving the courthouse with his security team. Michael stopped and turned. He had been dreading this moment, the confrontation with the families of the men who had killed his father. "Your fame killed my husband," she screamed, her voice carrying across the courthouse plaza. Michael was confused. "Ma'am, I think you mean my father." "I know what I said. Your fame killed my husband too." The crowd of reporters and onlookers fell silent. Michael's security team moved closer, but he held up a hand to stop them. "I don't understand." Margaret Thompson's voice cracked as she continued. "My son is in prison for the rest of his life because he saw your daddy wearing your jewelry, driving your car, showing off your success. If you hadn't been famous, if you hadn't given him those things, my boy would never have targeted him." "Ma'am, your son made his own choices. You made it easy for him," she interrupted. "You put a target on your father's back and then you act surprised when someone took the shot." The crowd was completely silent now. Camera crews were capturing every word, every emotion. Michael felt exposed, vulnerable in a way he had never experienced. "You want to know what really happened?" Margaret continued, tears streaming down her face. "Your fame didn't just kill your father, it killed my family too. My son was a good boy before he got desperate, before he started looking at rich people like they owed him something. You never what? You never thought about what it meant to flaunt your wealth? You never considered that giving your father expensive things might put him in danger?" Michael wanted to defend himself, to explain that everything he had given his father was out of love, out of gratitude, but the words wouldn't come. "Your daddy died because two boys from the projects saw him as a symbol of everything they couldn't have. And my son is going to die in prison because you made your father a walking advertisement for your success." "Mrs. Thompson, I understand you're hurting. Do you? Do you really understand? Because from where I'm standing, you're still the rich, famous basketball player, and the rest of us are left to pick up the pieces of what your fame destroyed." That night, alone in his hotel room, Michael replayed Margaret Thompson's words over and over. She was wrong about many things. Her son had made his own choices, had committed his own crimes. But she wasn't wrong about everything. Michael thought about all the ways his fame had changed his family's life. The security concerns, the constant attention, the inability to live normally. He had tried to protect them by giving them the best of everything, by sharing his success with them, but in trying to protect them with wealth, he had made them targets for it. He called his mother that night. "Mom, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." "What is it, Michael?" "Did Dad ever feel unsafe because of my fame? Did he ever worry about being a target?" There was a long pause. "Michael, your father was so proud of you. He never wanted you to worry about us. That's not what I asked." Another pause. "Yes, Michael. He worried. We both did. After you became really famous, after the first championship, we started getting strange phone calls, letters, people asking for money, making threats. Your father bought a gun. He never told you because he didn't want it to affect your game." Michael felt sick. Why didn't you tell me? Because we knew you would blame yourself. We knew you would try to fix it by doing more, giving us more security, more protection. But we couldn't live in a bubble forever. Maybe you should have. Maybe. But your father wanted to live his life, Michael. He didn't want to be a prisoner of your success. 3 months later, on October 6, 1993, Michael Jordan announced his retirement from basketball. He was 30 years old, at the absolute peak of his powers, coming off 3 consecutive championships. The sports world was stunned. Theories flew about gambling debts, burnout, secret suspensions, but Michael kept the real reason to himself. He retired because he couldn't bear the thought that his continued success might put someone else he loved in danger. He retired because every time he stepped on a basketball court, every time he won another game, he was making himself more famous, more of a target, and by extension, making his family more vulnerable. The press conference was torture. Reporters asked about his future plans, about whether he'd ever come back, about what had driven him to this decision. "I've achieved everything I wanted to achieve in basketball," he said. "It's time to step away and focus on other things." But that wasn't the truth. The truth was that success felt like poison now. Every accolade, every endorsement deal, every magazine cover was a reminder that his fame had cost his father his life. 6 months into his retirement, Michael was still struggling with guilt and anger. He had tried baseball, hoping that a lower-profile sport might let him compete without the crushing weight of his basketball fame. But even in baseball, he was Michael Jordan, and the attention followed him everywhere. His mother came to visit him in Birmingham, where he was playing minor league baseball for the Barons. "Michael, we need to talk." "Mom, if this is about coming back to basketball..." "It's not. It's about your father." They sat in his small apartment, and for the first time since James's death, they really talked about what had happened. "Your father knew the risks, Michael. He knew that being your father made him a target. But he also knew that being your father was the greatest honor of his life. He died because of me, Mom. He died because 2 young men made evil choices, not because of you. But if I hadn't been famous, if you hadn't been famous, your father would have lived a completely different life, a smaller life, a life where he never got to see his son achieve greatness, never got to feel the pride of watching you succeed against impossible odds. Was it worth it?" Dolores was quiet for a long time. "Your father used to say that every blessing comes with a burden. Your success was his greatest blessing. The danger that came with it was the burden he was willing to bear. I wasn't willing to let him bear it. But that wasn't your choice to make, Michael. That was his." When Michael returned to basketball in 1995, he was a different player and a different man. The joy was still there, but it was tempered by an understanding of what success could cost. He hired better security for his family. He was more careful about what he said in public, more aware of how his words and actions might affect the people he loved. He won 3 more championships, but he never again celebrated without thinking about his father. In 2003, 10 years after James Jordan's death, Michael received an unexpected letter. It was from Margaret Thompson, the mother of one of his father's killers. "Mr. Jordan," the letter began, "I owe you an apology. I was wrong to blame you for what my son did. I was grieving and angry, and I said things that weren't fair. Your father's death was a tragedy, but it wasn't your fault. My son's choices were his own." The letter went on to describe how she had spent the decades since the trial trying to understand how her son had become capable of murder. She had started volunteering with at-risk youth, trying to prevent other families from experiencing what hers had gone through. "I've learned that fame didn't make my son a killer," she wrote. "Poverty, desperation, and bad choices did. You were just an easy target for his anger. I'm sorry for making you a target for mine." Michael never responded to the letter, but he kept it. It was a reminder that pain makes people say and do things they don't mean, and that forgiveness is sometimes the only way to move forward. Today, when people ask Michael Jordan about his greatest victory, he doesn't talk about championships or records. He talks about learning to balance success with responsibility, achievement with awareness. James Jordan died because he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, targeted by criminals who saw him as a symbol of wealth they could never have. But his death also taught his son that fame is not just about personal glory. It's about understanding the ripple effects of success on everyone around you. Michael established the James R. Jordan Foundation in his father's memory, focusing on education and youth development in underserved communities. He never said it publicly, but those close to him knew that the foundation was his way of trying to address the root causes of the desperation that had led to his father's death. "I can't bring my father back," Michael once told a close friend, "but maybe I can help create a world where fewer young people see violence as their only option." The day Michael Jordan's father disappeared changed everything, not just for Michael, but for how he understood the responsibility that comes with extraordinary success. Fame had taken his father away, but it also gave him the platform to make sure James Jordan's death meant something. Some losses can never be recovered from, but sometimes, in trying to heal from them, we find ways to prevent others from experiencing the same pain. That's not justice, that's not closure, but for Michael Jordan, it was the only way forward. The greatest athlete in the world had learned that winning everything means nothing if you can't protect the people you love. James Jordan died because fame made him a target, but his death also made his son understand that true greatness isn't measured by what you achieve, it's measured by what you do with that achievement to make the world safer for everyone. Some prices are too high to pay, but once they've been paid, the only choice is to make sure they weren't paid in vain.